Hey, what is it, guys? So, your boy decided to enter with Traptrix this past day, and it went as well as you'd think. I went 3-2, but still made top cut with it because tiebreakers are amazing like that. But for those of you that don't know, Traptrix is like a really old deck from where you play it back in the format of hats, where it's hands, artifacts, and Traptrix. But now it actually works really well as a pure deck. So I'll go through the deck first, and then at the end there will be a combo video to show you how the deck works. So for a start off, we play the 3 Mamelo and the 3 Mentis. So to start off, all Traptrix monsters have the effect of they are immune to whole normal traps. So basically, your opponent can't bottomless them. Um, so Mentis, when she's normal summoned, she lets you add a Traptrix monster from deck to hand, and Mamelo lets you add a whole trap card from deck to hand. These are like the ones that you want to open in your opening hand because Mentis gives you free search into Dioneo, and this gives you free access to your Floodgate trap hole. They also have an effect of Mamelo has the effect of when it's special summoned, you can destroy one spell or trap card your opponent controls. Unfortunately, it's a mandatory. Well, fortunately, it's a mandatory effect because even if your opponent doesn't have back row, it will trigger the Sarah. And Mentis has the effect of you can return a set spell or trap card to hand to set one to set a spell or trap card from hand. The setting is optional, but it does come up during your opponent's turn because if they have some forms of back row removal, you can freely bounce your back row back to hand so they miss out on it. And yeah, it's good like that. Then you play the double Dioneo. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this one. And Atrax. Now, Atrax is played just because it's another name. It has the effect of your holes cannot be negated, as well as you can activate your hole tracks from hand, where it does come up sometimes where you can special summon this off the Sarah if you know that your opponent's got a hand trap. So then, if you've got the Gravediggers in hand, you can use the Gravediggers from hand instead of setting it. But besides that, it's just used as another name. The Dioneo has the effect of when it's normal summoned, you can special summon one Traptrix monster in defense, but its effects are negated. And when it's special summoned, you can set a hole from your graveyard, which lets you. Why wouldn't this card be great? This is the new one. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce its name. So basically, you can send one set hole card to special summon it, and then if you have no back row, you can banish it from the graveyard to set one hole. So this allows you to only play a handful of whole trap cards and then just have free access to them constantly because the Dioneo is reset from grave along with this. I play a small Dogmatica package of 1 Ecclesia and 1 Floor. It's just standard stuff. Then the 3 Parallel Exceed, you have to play 3 because you want to see this in your opening hand. Because if you open up this plus a Traptrix monster, it equals a Rafflesia plus a Sarah, which means that your Sarah is protected, as well as you have access to every trap hole card in your deck. Then the only hand trap you play is the Triple Dimension Shifter. You don't need to play any other hand traps in the main because you play so much back row. It's like the Altergeist theory where you don't need to play multiples of every single hand trap because the main deck just does everything. You just need to shut your opponent down for 1 turn, and then after that, you can start setting up all your back rows and continuous stuff. So you get continuous recursion of all your trap holes. The only bad thing is if you draw this late game, it doesn't really do anything, but that's the argument with nearly every hand trap going. If you draw an Ash Blossom too late in this deck, it wouldn't do anything. You don't draw in your first turn against Drytron, you auto lose, and Gamma just doesn't do anything and takes up way too many space in the main deck. So then, for the spells, we play the triple Medea Servant, the 1 double or nothing, and the 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. These are the only spells that you actually play. The Medea Servant is standard for the fact of Dogmatica stuff. The double or nothing is played for because I play the Utopia double package. You can opt not to play this if you want to play Lightning in your extra deck instead, but for now I do like the Utopia double package because if your opponent messes up or they don't have the right back row to stop, you can just hit them for game once you've gone through all the resources, and Duster is just back row removal. And then for the whole traps, you play 2 Floodgates and 2 Gravediggers. Now, I was tempted to play Traptrix, Trap Hole, Nightmare, but there just wasn't the space, and I tested it with the whole Nightmare, and it doesn't come up as much. It's a good card in the sense of if your opponent doesn't play around it because they don't know half these cards do, it's really, really good, but the fact is, Whole Nightmare only works on monsters the turn that they were special summoned from the extra deck, and the fact is that unless you kind of stop it there and then, the Whole Nightmare doesn't do anything. The Gravediggers is just like free burn, because negating stuff and burning your opponent makes it really easy to do stuff. And the Floodgate Trap Hole, I will say, is like the best hole in the deck. For the sole fact of, if you're playing Control Mirror, the amount of times I've gone up against Poltergeist, Subterra, or anything like that, and I activate this, I can just keep on resetting it with Dianeo and one of the Link monsters, and then all you have to do is just beat over some defense position monster, and this will always be set, because you have free access to the stuff from the graveyard, as well as free ways to search into it. So then for the other traps, we play the Triple Shade Brigandine. You have to play this because, again, like the Parallel Exceed, this plus Traptrix creates Sarah plus Rafflesia, and the fact is that we play Time Thief Redoer in the extra deck as well, so having a Time Thief Redoer with a trap attached to it just gives you free spinning every turn against your opponent. Then we play the Triple Torrential Tribute. TT's just TT. Double Dogmatic Punishment. We don't play the third because space reason, and also you can only use this once per turn. Hence, you need to actually think when you use the Dogmatic Punishment, because it does lock you out of your extra deck next turn. So if you don't have a way to protect, this is mainly used to protect your Sarah, because Sarah gives you free recursion, but you're not as worried with your extra deck, because since you are playing bigger stuff in the sense of floor, you can start just punching over stuff repeatedly, but you have to think in advance. A lot of the times I will save the Dogmatic Punishment for my turn, and then punishment of opponent's monster during the battle phase, and then continue. 2 Heavy Storm Duster. This is just for background removal. I prefer playing this over the Cosmic Cyclones or the Twin Twisters, because you don't want to discard stuff, because there's not always a time where you have stuff that you can discard, and this is no neg during your opponent's turn, because you skip your battle phase, but it's your opponent's turn. But those are all the chainable traps that trigger the Sarah, and then the last traps are the Triple Strike and 1 Imperial Order. Order is Order, Strike does not need explaining because it is Strike. So it's a 40-card main deck. There are a handful of things that I am contemplating changing with it. If you were to not play the Dogmatica stuff in it, you can actually take the Nidias out for Prosperities and play the Amazement Engine. I was contemplating playing the Amazement Engine instead of the Dogmatica engine, because Amazement still gives you access to your extra deck, and Alikino does some free popping, but I've tested with it, and unfortunately it didn't work as well as I'd hoped. It's mainly because I don't own Prosperities, but even when I tested it on a Dueling Book with Prosperities, it doesn't work as well as you would hope it to. So, going into the extra deck, we play the Double Sarah. I am contemplating putting this up to 3, because there have been times where the third one does come up, but you have to play a minimum. 1 will always die. But Sarah's effect is basically, she's immune to traps, and then when a trap card is activated, you can special summon a Traptrix monster from deck. When a Traptrix monster's effect is activated, you can set 1 whole trap from your deck. So, this is why I mean of the opening the Shade Brigandine, and a Traptrix monster gives you free Raffle Seer, because you activate the Brigandine. This triggers this to summon Mamelo. Mamelo is a mandatory effect, so it will then trigger the Sarah to then set a whole trap. So you end up with, from 2 cards in hand, you end up with this, a Raffle Seer plus a back row. So yeah. 1 Clara, this is the newer one, where during the end phase you can special summon a Traptrix monster from the graveyard. This is great with the Raffalsia, because Raffalsia just protects stuff while it's on the field, so yay, why not? And she lets you reset your holes instead of sending them to the graveyard. You don't need to play multiples of her. It's only in grindier situations that this will come up, but there have been times where I've gone multiple games without using her effect. 1 Link Spider, you have to play the Spider, because if your Clara gets, if your Sarah gets negated, you can summon the Link Spider with the Shade Brigandine and then trigger the Parallel Exceed from hand, so you still end up with free stuff. One Unicorn, this has never really come up, I'm probably tempted to cut this, and one Phoenix again. Never really used it. It's there in case I need to pop some back row, because since I play less cards that actually destroy back row, the Phoenix was coming up, but again, tempted to cut it. Then we play the one Bagushka. You summon this against Tri-Brigade, you automatically win, especially if you're going first, you auto win against Tri-Brigade because they don't have a free way to out this. The one Redoer monster effect to leave the field is great, as well as against trap decks even better, and the fact that you can summon this with the Shade Brigandine means that you have the free trap effect. The Utopia package, 10k is 10k. I implore you to come up with a reason why, if your opponent messes up, why you don't play this. One Rafalsia. Now, no one seems to know what this card actually does, because they all think that it just sends whole cards from the graveyard, from your deck to the graveyard, and then copies their effects. But this card has another effect. So, while she's got materials, she's immune to traps, and then while she's on the field, Traptrix monsters you control, as well as Traptrix monsters, except for herself, cannot be destroyed by battle, they cannot be targeted with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed with card effects. So you summon this with a Sarah, your opponent has to get rid of this, or they cannot get rid of the Sarah. So, yeah, Rafflesia is good monster, but unfortunately you don't need to play multiples, because, Clara can summon this back from the grave, so then if this is already dead, you just bring it back with Clara, and then Clara is protected again, because you have to run over two things to get rid of the Clara. Then for the dogmatic stuff, it's just standard. Titaniclad, Double Entis, and the Axe Ignister. Now, there are some builds that instead of playing the Ignister, play the Omega, because you can use Omega to send stuff your opponent's got from graveyard back into deck. But I prefer to play the Axe Ignister, because there are some things that I don't particularly want to destroy. I'd rather have them back in the deck, like with Omen, because it gives for the free search, and that's the only thing that comes off the top of my head. Enters, free popping, free search for Flood Release during end phase, so it doesn't really need explaining. The only things that I am tempted to change in the extra deck is these two, so I was tempted to cut them for more Exceed, so one of these might be a Dweller, and then the other one, maybe the BLS Link, because it sometimes comes up. It's not always it will come up, but sometimes it does. If you don't want to play the standard Utopia package, you can actually cut this and play Utopia the Lightning, because unfortunately there is no main deck out to Dragoon, sort of, besides baiting it out with Floodgate or other things, but and Time Thief Redoer, because Redoer does not target for some reason. But for now, I'm playing this. But that's really it for the extra deck. There's the other things don't particularly need change. Sarah, I could potentially play a third one, but it doesn't come up as often as it does, because if you play the set properly, you'll only really summon 2 Sarah, and then you'll be fine from there. There is no side deck, unfortunately, because your boy didn't really have a good one built, and the other one's kind of really, really garbage. You just laugh at me if you saw it. So, for the standard Traptrix opening, you particularly want to open up a Shade Brigandine, well, a combination of Shade Brigandine, Parallel Exceed, Mentis, or Mamelo. So it's any combination of any of these two plus any of these two equal to the same board. So the usual play would be normal summoning Mamelo. Mamelo's effect adding you either the Gravediggers or the Floodgate. Doesn't particularly matter, so in this situation have the Floodgate and the Gravediggers in deck. Turn the Mamelo into a Sarah. Then you trigger the Parallel Exceed from hand to summon a Parallel Exceed and a second copy of Exceed, and then turn the 2 Exceeds into a Rafflesia. So then you have the free access the free trigger of Sarah during your opponent's turn and the protection with Reflasia, but if you don't have the Exceed in hand, you can use the Shade Brigadier instead, activate that, summon it. Sarah's effect activates because a trap card was activated, letting me special summon the Mamelo from deck. Mamelo is a mandatory effect, so she'll trigger even if your opponent doesn't have back row to set one of the whole traps, can be Gravediggers, Floodgate, preferably Floodgate of the Gravediggers, and then you can turn these two into a Reflasia to protect Sarah again. There are some times where you might not need to go for the Reflasia. It just depends if you've opened up other things to protect this. If you've opened up other things to protect this in the form of like Dogmaster's punishment, you don't need to go into this. You can go into the Time Thief Redoer or the Bagushka. The Redoer because free trap underneath it and summoning Bagushka in defense against a lot of decks is really, really good. So yeah. There isn't really any other combos. This is just like one of those decks like Subterra and Altergeist where there isn't really like multiple things you can do during your first turn. The preferable first turn is Sarah plus Rafalsia, and that's really it, with multiple back rows to protect it. And then you tend to win because your opponent kind of forgets that because the Link monsters are immune to traps. Your opponent can sometimes forget that Rage, Roar, and other things will not do anything to these. Unfortunately, the quick ruling thing for one side, where this was actually put up on the group, where unfortunately these only protect against trap effects. So if your opponent has like Lair or something out, or something that gets rid of this as cost, unfortunately Sarah cannot protect itself because effects are not costs, which is really sad, but it rarely comes up. But the matchups that I had was, one was against True Draco, where it was really funny because I had a Sarah up and a Reflasia with 2 materials, and basically they were both immune to traps, so he kept on going Apocalypse half every single turn, and it just did nothing to them, and his only main deck out to this was activating Diagram and punching over them, because that was it. So if I drew an out to the Diagram, then yeah, I would have been fine, but unfortunately I didn't, and he just summoned a bunch of True Dracos. And it was extra deck version, so he summoned 3 True Dracos, overlaid them into a Freezer Dawn, made a rank 6 monster where you can overlay Freezer Dawn on itself, then made Gaia, and then made Zeus. And yeah, Zeus with numerous materials, I can't deal with that, because that's not a good day. The other matchup was against Prank Kids, opening the Shifter and opening, I just said no, and then loads of back row, said no after a while. I had a salad matchup, unfortunately game 3, opening up a handful of monsters and no back row just doesn't do anything, unfortunately, and game 1, he went first, opened up a weird board, so he main decked Almirage, because the theory was that if you can't make Balance, he'll make Almirage just for the Rage or Roar, so the amount of times he'll go normal Effect Vera or normal Hand Trap, make Almirage just so he has the Roar life, but yeah, nobody does that, but whatever, I guess. Then I had a Tribe Game matchup, game 1, just lost because of Revolt and everything, and I had nothing to deal with it. I believe one of my matchups was Shadol as well, so I just it was an alright matchup because again, traps just help. Just fully getting trap holding constantly is just yay, it does stuff. And I can't remember the last matchup off the top of my head. I think it was another control matchup. Most of the matchups that I actually had that day were control, and for some reason Traptrix is like just the god tier for control, so yay. I probably will be playing this for a bit longer. I'll update the deck as I go along, and maybe at some point next week I will do a DB version of this where you can see the actual version that I want to build if I have this thing called money. But your boy broke. So yeah. So if you guys have any suggestions on how to improve this, or just want to roast me in the comments, be my guest, because I love seeing a good roast in the comments. So thanks guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as always, and I'll be signing it now. Peace.